Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Rez Infinite. So we got to the credits of the main story of the original game. The bad ending didn't beat the game with full level of evolution, which I assume is the best ending you can get. I don't think you need to be at max overdrive and max evolution. And that leads us to playing this lost area. We could certainly do direct assault, which would just be play the entire game all the way through. I don't really see much of a reason to do that. Inherently, even though I probably did pretty well on this game the first time I played it, I've done deceptively well probably the second time in making this footage. First time I played this would have been many years ago on the Xbox 360, which even then it would have been called Rez Infinite, not the original Rez game. It was just called Rez. But yeah, I've made this look too easy, and I do think somebody who hasn't played this game before would probably struggle a little bit more with it. But I don't know if you'd struggle really to the point where you'd get more than one or two game overs. Here we have a very different music style, and that's certainly something I would have wanted throughout the game too, is to have something that's a little bit a different tempo. Something maybe a more relaxed. I definitely feel like you could have had some relaxing falling animation. No, not animation. What's the word I'm trying to say here? Falling action is the phrase I'm trying to use. Yeah, levels in between the main levels, which are just kind of all intense all the time. Notice how the game here is turning me around very fast and pointing me in the right direction. The game in the boss fights doesn't really do that much. And if you do particularly well, you do end up having like more free time than you probably should in between sections. Because this is a separate level, you've got to work within the limitations of the length of the level to level up. Something I'm probably not showing particularly well either is that some of the character placement here is, I think, being more thought of as to how would it sound if you played perfectly versus how I'm doing it. So if I had a long sweeping lock on and then release, yeah, it definitely would sound different and probably sound better and potentially give me a higher score. That's the level up there. You'd almost wish you could avoid getting the analyzation and go around in a loop a second time. Now noticeably though, a lot of this layout and enemy design is not any different than what we've already seen. Perhaps this is way more intense with a lot more enemies on screen this time, but So it almost then comes down to a question as to why is this not a procedurally generated bit of content instead of bespoke, artistically created content. In the sense, as far as why is the game not just continuously giving me more and more levels, and maybe it is, maybe I can go to level 100 here. That was closer than it should have been. But I imagine that's not what's going to happen. I imagine very much we're going to have a situation where it is 10 levels and then you're done. And I guess you really couldn't go forever because you would again need some kind of break, some kind of resting section. I got hit there. I was doing so good at leveling up. Now the game wants me to get a high score. I don't know what the high score needs to be though. So wouldn't it have been helpful? What does the green do? I don't even know what the green does. Oh, that probably just gives me more points. It's funny how this game is designed just to intentionally put enemies in front of your face, too. It's like no other shooter really tries so hard to have the target right in the middle of the reticle. No boss fight there at all. So I got 95,260. Man, cannot read. So, did I need to get over 100,000? To get the high score, or is that the high score? Interesting. So transmission is not unlocked until we get over 150,000, and I guess it did show me what the high score is. So on the Beyond options, we could hope to start at second form, or third form, or fourth form, or fifth form, or final form, if we have played the game for over 9 hours. Which, yeah, playing the game over 9 hours would mostly mean just leaving the game running for 9 hours, I'd think. But maybe that's not even good enough. Or we could get a better beam type. Or, I don't know if the camera angle is really going to change too much here. High score, 3 areas of score attack mode. Dynamic zooming is an interesting idea. High score won't be recorded, however, if you have infinite overdrive. So let's just try it legitimately here. The second time, since I only took a little bit. But I think what we're going to have to do is I think what I'm going to have to do is just start doing the score attack mode. I would assume what happens here is you get higher scores if you target more things. But it's not really a case, in my opinion, that you can just get 8 always. You can do that, certainly. You can do that. You can do that. You can do that. Notice how, though, this style of gameplay comes with a major increased risk. There might also be a bit of a situation here where you might want enemies to wait until you get them all in your sights. Pretty easy to miss things. What do I miss? I am at like 38,000 now. It takes a level of memorization and a level of practice that I'm probably in modern times just not willing to really commit to. This is yet another old game that would definitely have tried to sell itself as being infinitely replayable, and it just doesn't match the real world of a PC gamer these days, in which you have potentially hundreds, if not thousands, of games on a Steam backlog that at any point you can play. I'm kind of stagnating at about 60,000 here. It's almost a direct score multiplier. And you still really would have to wave quite a bit. Seems like there's really only one, maybe two places where you can get higher scores. I wouldn't fully assume that there's a full path idea in this game that if I just play with score attack enough, I will unlock enough helpers, or different modes. Whoops, almost missed that. To then help me do some of these other sections. So we've got 2 more levels to get a fairly high amount of score. I imagine you're not getting higher score because of this, and here I'm about to die. Yeah, I imagine you're not getting a higher score based on your evolution level, although that could be part of the factor, certainly. See there, I just died. But actually I was over 150,000 points, so should they count that in the score track mode? Well, they didn't, regardless, but yeah. Attempt number 3. Considerably higher scores there, though. One of the tricks to take from this too, though, is they can still be off the screen and you can hit them. I wouldn't let them get too far away, but like waiting until something fired at you is not the worst thought ever. If you've got nothing else going on. But yeah, you're going to want to push this. You're going to want to not take a lot of damage. You're going to want to try and get as high of a modifier as possible. You're going to want to try and keep your overdrive abilities charged up. Probably a decent place to go ahead and enable your overdrive. It's not super hard to get the high score if you can just break yourself of bad habits. Save myself from dying there with the overdrive. It is a little bit of a challenge though for me, so if I am going to stick to the thought pattern that was doing particularly well in this game, if I am running into challenges now, then maybe this is actually fairly difficult. I wouldn't be surprised if I am rather disconnected from what other people's experience would be, and just not really feeling anywhere as much of a challenge as other players would have. Okay, we got one level up. We have no overdrive. Some of these enemies straight up just don't attack you, weirdly. They are simply cannon fodder, whereas others clearly will target you. Here's the case where you want to get it all, but it is probably better to just avoid this. You get the text in the top left corner, which you sadly don't really ever get to pay any attention to as far as what's going on. But you can see it saying cracking, hacking. There is a whole hacking simulator analogy going on here. And this is probably one of the best examples of where, if you're going to have hacking in your game, don't try to make it realistic, because that would be boring. Instead, just take the analogy and do something entertaining with it. I'm not sure I'm gonna make it here on the score aspect, but I probably will make it to the end. There's a level of timing here that you want to engage with when fighting some of these enemies and having the lockdown happen on them, and a part of that certainly I think comes down to also hearing and recognizing the sound effects. Let's see, I think that's it, but we got the high score, unless I'm totally off on my count here. 154,710. We missed a significant amount of support items there. The problem with a lost area like this being added is that doesn't really feel like something you'd want to play that much more often. It's one more area, so now you have 6 areas that this one doesn't even have a boss. So in that, it's not really that different, and you really would just expect it to just be added at the bottom here. In fact, even looking at this, it looks like there should be another 5 areas just on the menu. Of course, that's at 1080p resolution. So the transmission here, we'll look at it. We kind of know what direct assault is, but we probably should do it once anyways, just to try and get all the achievements, although I question some of that. But we still would have to do score attack quite a bit here for the beyond options, which, yeah, in a lot of ways, I guess if you could get at this, what is this form? Martian alien, I guess. That sounds like a whole new form that may not really mean much. And that gives you the alien beam. Yeah. All of this feels like very end-game content, however. Even transmission here is a nice pun, but if there's just no danger at all, you can take your time. And I wouldn't say I particularly like the music as it's starting here. Yeah, this is perhaps too transcendental, too much of a thought of just trying to go into a trance. Of course, you start to just immediately feel like this may be just procedurally generated noise and procedurally generated locations, enemy placements, and waves. Maybe bespoke waves with randomizing where the waves appear is the best way to design something. Of course, you're really just taking the whole game apart, and really just sounds like noise to me. Yeah, not good noise, whereas at least the other music sounded good. And some of this noise may be because I'm playing the normal way, whereas it's not really much better if you try to max out your shots and target everything. I'm not 100% sure that you don't just have to exit this level. And this just goes forever. Like, eventually I would assume this would stop. And so that may really just be a case. This may be a great example of this is as good as they could do. This is as much funding as they got as far as making a procedurally generated game, whereas a modern attempt to rip off this game, almost certainly you should have as a major feature in the back of your mind procedurally generated levels that could just be played forever, particularly since this is a game that's, if it's going to use the voxel, not voxels, but vector-based imagery, that would be so easy to render in most cases that it would feel like this would make a good mobile game. And if it was a mobile game, just being able to play it every single day for one round of a procedurally generated level would be nice. Even if you were going to try and sell it as a indie game on PC, though, you're going to want more people to stick with the whole experience for a longer amount of time, so procedurally generated levels could also help with that also. Or at least somewhat randomized levels. Maybe that is in part why we've never seen another Star Fox game. I think it's more a case that Nintendo just would rather make another Mario game than a Star Fox game. Anyways, but yeah, if you were going to have an on-rail shooter, which is effectively what this is, you probably would want to have it fairly randomized. Part of the reason, certainly, that on-rail shooters have not had any real resurgence is that there's just not that many arcades, and what an arcade is today, for the most part, is much full of ticket producing arcade carnival style games, more than Mortal Kombat cabinets or like what you would call traditional arcade games with joysticks or light guns. Light guns don't work and haven't worked since basically the Wii. There is I believe it's called a Sinclair light gun that you can set up on the computer, but it's a very, very expensive thing that's not being subsidized by anything. And I don't think any game console company really wants to just release a light gun attachment and make light gun games. Again, light gun games always had some problems with them in that they were fairly short and gimmick based. And you can make plenty of other kinds of shooter games that just work with a controller. Like, nobody's asking or trying to play Call of Duty with a Sinclair light gun game, light gun accessory. Well, I'm sure somebody out there is asking, but not enough people. Yep, and I would say that is just a terrible experience. The audio is really bad there, and I just can't see any reason why you would want to do that. It does give you an excuse, I guess, to squeeze in yet another artist and yet another song. So with the Beyond content, potentially you are getting up to 7 songs. It is very weird, though, to have this whole system where you are jumping in and out of the main menu, and then you've got this Area X added part that is even its own secondary menu, or more top level menu. And then you're putting options in multiple places, and, well, maybe not putting options in multiple places, but making the menus too convoluted for their own helpful. It would make a lot more sense to say Res, Area X, Beyond, just have more of the menus in here. Although that does speak to an interesting point, that there probably isn't enough good middleware software out there. Something that you might have as a plugin for, say, Unity or Unreal Engine or whatever programming language you have, that would collapse text menus based on the height of the screen and the resolution of the screen. When honestly that would make a lot of sense. And honestly, it would make a lot of sense on web pages more than anything. Because if you have a super tall resolution of a web page that you're looking in on a cell phone in a portrait mode, it would make a lot of sense for a menu to show all the options. Whereas if you had a smaller resolution, squeeze down the options into a sub-menu that is only shown if absolutely necessary, allowing for the default way of user interface to be everything is on the first screen at the first point. If you have a big enough resolution, then choices are made by the creator of the user interface as far as what has priority and what doesn't. But in this video game aspect here, as I'm kind of rambling, I do feel like I'm getting sent all over the place. As far as ranking, we still, I guess, haven't really done too much here. So, yeah, I guess the time there is not hours, minutes, and seconds. Although, if it is, they're rounding, I would say. But yeah, for the lost area in normal 2D, I am in the 2655th spot with 3 tries. And the total score, seemingly, that you could get on this would be 424,850, which I would have to question quite a bit. It's not completely unbelievable that maybe you could get really, really good at the lost area and double the score to 300,000, but to triple it to nearly 450,000, that seems a little unbelievable. And even if it was true, and this isn't just the case of either the first person to anywhere close to the first 1,000 people all hacking and lying about what their score was, you're not seeing enough competition there to really justify that those scores are really achievable. You're seeing a 50,000 point difference from number 1 from number 2, then another 50,000 point difference from number 2 to number 3, and then you have some fairly consistent scores between 3, 4, and 5, and then your 10,000 point difference for 6 and 7 isn't that crazy, so that all seems within a reasonable range after the first few. But that really may mean nothing at all, because it may just be a case that the people were posting similar scores over and over again, or cheating in a different way than the way I think you might do it, so that they could only get certain levels of scores. Right, so I guess if you want a ranking, direct assault needs to be done, score attack for each area needs to be done, boss rush needs to be done. Boss rush still requires me to get 95% of all the play modes. So the hope here is that we will now effectively, in the next episode, starting with the next episode, play the entire game a second time, now that we're kind of warmed up for score attack. Now, on that, do we have to actually beat score attack, the score? I could probably unlock the first form starting instead of starting with 0 form, but you start with, yeah. You only have to get 100% shot down ratio in any area to start with a second form. You have to do it in 2 areas to unlock the third form, or play for over 6 hours. You have to do it for 3 areas for the 4th form. You have to do it for 4 areas, or play for 8 hours to do that. Then you have to do 100% shutdown for all 5 areas to get the final form. To get the Mar-Alien, or maybe that is just Martian form, though you would have to do all the areas and get 100% item collection rate in areas 1 through 5. Which that seems like quite a lot. quite a requirement. But it may not be that hard. Like, if you're unlocking... If you just play score attack multiple times, 30 times, to get the Martian beam, then maybe you can play in the direct assault mode to play all the areas. No, you have to do this in play mode, don't you? So, yeah. Some of this beyond stuff is probably beyond a lot of players as far as unlockables. 30 times is quite a bit, though. With 5 areas, it definitely makes an argument that if I was going to try and get all of that, that I would do a lot of that off screen. And honestly, it's just so much. So it probably makes a lot more sense just to leave the game running overnight for 8 hours. Maybe start a mission and pause the game, leave it running there, or maybe just stay in the menu for 8 hours and it still counts. I'm not sure. I need to go back and check the achievements, because we may be approaching a wall here where some of the unlocks and some of the achievements just are not worth the effort. There's going to be less and less substance as far as new content to see. We basically only have Area X, and then we're just approaching each level we've already seen in slightly different ways, very slight different ways, with things like score attack. And so it could get very repetitive and tiring, to the point where at a certain level, I guess it's, as the game is in its current form, it's probably good that there aren't another 4 areas, or because if there were a total of 9 areas and I had to get them done in play mode, then direct assault mode, then score attack mode, and that would be too much. 27 levels, or 9 levels repeated 3 times, is a little too much. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to support me further, there's some links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.